Welcome, welcome, welcome back to another episode of Conversational Witchcraft with me, Dawn the Kitchen Witch. I'm so happy to have you all with us today. Before we get going, I've got to do my little introduction here. Make sure that you subscribe to this channel. And if you love what we're doing on Conversational Witchcraft, you can support us by clicking the Support Us link and help us bring you more great information and inspiration and conversations right here on Conversational Witchcraft. Don't forget that you can learn more about me and food magic and the power of kitchen witchery by visiting me directly at cucinaaurora.com. Today on the show, we are welcoming a fellow kitchen witch. So, I am so excited. It's Melanie Marquis. She is an award-winning author with 8 Llewellyn titles so far, and the co-author of the award-winning Modern Spellcasters Tarot. She's the local coordinator of the Pagan Pride Project, the producer of Mystical Minds Convention, as well as the founder of United Witches Global Coven and the organizer of Denver Pagans. Melanie, welcome to the show. It's so great to have you.
For having me. I'm excited to be here.
It's really cool. You have like this crazy resume of all these amazing books and events and coordinate all this stuff that you've done so far, right? Because we're all mid career and mid doing things. But our listeners and myself really, it's really just what I want to know. Like I find you very intriguing because your body of work is not just about one aspect of witchcraft. You've done a lot of done like moon magic things, and you've done seasonal books, and now you're doing kitchen witchcraft. So that makes me wonder, how did you find this path? Can you tell us a little bit about like how you found the path of witchcraft?
Oh, yeah, sure. Well, I grew up kind of practicing, I guess I would call it magic. I didn't really think of it like that, but my mom was just kind of naturally magical. She's a natural witch, I call it, and very psychic. So I grew up, she'd play little games with me, like to strengthen your psychic sense and stuff like that. And she'd do like weather magic with me and stuff like
Yeah.
that. I didn't really think anything. I didn't really realize that it was like as unusual as it was, or that it was, anything really all that odd. Then when I was about 15, we were living in Georgia at the time, and I was at the local bookstore, and I found the freak section of the bookstore. So I found a book that's about witchcraft today. It's a common story of my generation. But I saw that book and I started reading. I'm like, oh, this seems extremely familiar. This all seems like what I've been doing. I didn't realize there was like a spirituality to it. So that's what kind of made me realize that it was like witchcraft, some things that I
Mhm.
was doing naturally. And that kind of brought me more into the spirituality of it. But since then, I guess my path has just kind of evolved naturally and developed as I've learned more and practiced more.
Did you go to your mom and be like, Mom, you're a witch? What, you've been doing all this stuff your whole life? What did you say that? Did you have that conversation?
Not really. I guess it was just kind of like understood or something. I don't know. Like she didn't really call it. I guess she didn't really think of it as witchcraft. Although I don't think she would have been opposed to calling it witchcraft. But there was only a couple times that I remember watching her lay some curses on people.
Only
Other
a
than
couple, only a couple.
cooking magic, but other than that, she wasn't real. Didn't really do like a whole lot of spell casting per
Sure.
se.
Sure. A little more like folk practices and stuff like that. And how cool your mom was doing weather magic with you when you were a kid. That's amazing. Such a cool thing. Wow. So throughout your journey into witchcraft, obviously, so you said you found this book when you were like 15, and then what happened? Like, did you immediately go, this is who I am, and now I want to write witchy books for the rest of my life? Like, how did that evolve?
Yeah, well, kind of. Yeah. I embraced it right away. Like once I realized, that it was witchcraft or whatever, I embraced it right away. I remember dedicating myself outside under the moon with this tree in my yard, and I've been identifying as a witch ever since that full moon night. So, but yeah, as far as writing books go, I had honestly, like, I was in college, and I had unexpectedly lost a good friend of mine that passed away, honestly, and it kind of like sent me into this downward spiral where I messed up. I was doing like online college courses, and basically I messed that up completely just due to depression.
Yeah, that'll happen.
Drop out, and I thought, well, I've always liked writing, but something I can do, for maybe a career that I don't necessarily need my college degree for, and I was like, well, I'll try, since I'm interested in magic, I'll just try. I figured I would start in like a small kind of niche genre first. I figured that way if I messed up, I could kind of learn the trade, and then I'd still be okay to write for the mainstream, but only I succeeded. So I've been writing magic books ever since. And
Amazing.
that college degree.
That's amazing. Now, can you tell everybody what was that first book and how that came to be?
Yeah, it's called The Witch's Bag of Tricks. It actually recently is going out of print, so get them now.
Yeah.
But basically, it came to be. I'd started like when I started writing, I got a lot of interviews with different authors and different well-known witches at the time to, try to get to know people in the community and kind of get out there and get myself known out there.
Yeah.
And what I noticed was shocking to me is, I've been a reader to you talk to, people like Raymond Buckland, all these like super well-known people that seemed kind of like, in some ways, like almost a little bit like bored or jaded with magic, and or kind of just like, kind of like in a rut a little bit, almost like not as excited for life as they should be. So I'm like, this works. We know it works. There's other people that know it works. This is so exciting. Like,
Right.
I understand why, why even, somebody as great as Ray Buckling, how can they ever struggle? How can they ever doubt themselves? Now, of course, as an author, I'm like, oh yeah.
I totally get it. Right.
So the
Wow.
reality hits now.
Yeah.
But what inspired me was really basically like getting to know these people and realizing that like that everybody feels that, like that you get stuck in a rut sometimes. Everybody has that point when magic kind of loses its luster and kind of loses its spark. So I wanted to provide a guide for people to kind of spur them to the next point in their journey. So it has a lot of like self-reflective questions and ways to challenge oneself in your own path to kind of develop what's your next steps. If you're not in like an initiatory system and you're a solitary practitioner, and you don't have these like levels built in of progression, it's not as obvious. So you kind of have to like explore on your own and challenge yourself to take your practices further. So that's why I wrote that book, to kind of just help people get that spark back and make it exciting again and kind of get yourself growing again wherever you are in your path.
I think that's so cool because, you know, I, we talk about magic and witchcraft and paganism and all kinds of different spiritual paths and art and beauty and all that kind of stuff on this show. And the truth is that we are still human beings. And sometimes bad things happen and we fall away from our spiritual path, or life happens and we're just exhausted, or we step away from it for our own personal reasons. And it's interesting to me that you observed that kind of melancholy in people that of my generation. We were like, oh my God, Ray Buckland, wow, it's amazing. You wouldn't think that that person could ever get jaded because they're quite literally writing the book on witchcraft and spirituality and stuff. But the truth is all of us get to that point at some time, and it ebbs and it flows. And sometimes we don't do what we quote think we should do, or we don't have the energy to really delve into our spiritual practices in the ways we want to. And I think that's even worse now for the younger generation because everything's on Instagram and TikTok, and it's like, oh well, if I'm not doing this the way people are doing it on social media, then I'm not doing something right and I might lose my luster. Do you
Mm.
have any advice for people maybe feeling like that right now in their lives?
Yeah, I'd say, there's a lot to be said for luster, and when it does get boring, if you get kind of, feeling dull or in a rut, I'd urge you to like do something new and different, like shake things up because magic should feel magical. So when we're not feeling excited about it, I feel like, well, for one, like you need to have a purpose for magic. So I think, think bigger purposes. If you're not feeling anything personally, like, think about what in society do you want to help? What in this world do you want to change or impact? And take your magic to a bigger level. Or also just trying different forms and mediums can also kind of help shake things up and kind of get that excitement back. Like if you usually work with candles, try, powders or potions instead, or just try some image magic. Or, if you usually don't do a lot of ritual, maybe try doing more ritual. Or if you usually do something elaborate, try something real simple. Just kind of like, to me, I think just like shaking it up and changing your routine can help a
Yeah.
lot, you know, get us going again, get that energy flowing.
Absolutely. For me, I definitely get like that. I'm sure you do too. I think everybody does, where we kind of like we kind of we feel the distance, and that distance grows so gradually that all of a sudden we're like, oh, what happened? For me, what I do, if anybody's listening and dealing with this kind of thing at the moment, I like to touch in with community, right? So go to an event, go to a public ritual or something like that. And that, you do a lot of community work, right? So can you talk to us a little bit about how important community work is in your personal practice and also the community at large?
Yeah, that's an important point to make too, because like, yeah, we do need community, and we don't always live places. Excuse me, I maybe have to plug my phone up here. Use the angle for a second here. Um, yeah, like we don't always have community where we live. Sometimes but you can always find it like online through podcasts like this that you might be tuning into, or just like online meetings, things like that. To me, it is really, really important, just so that we don't feel like alone. It's important to be able to share these ideas with others. And to me, like magic is kind of like exponential. It has like an exponential effect when we get together to make some magic. It's more than just like 1 + 1 person. It's like exponential. Like two people together is actually equal to like three people or more. And it
Mhm.
really adds up. And to another thing too is to realize like your own value, like that you have community to bring to other people too. Like sometimes we feel shy.
Yeah.
He gave me some very good advice, though he's passed on, but he gave me some very good advice. He told me like, if I'm feeling shy, to don't worry about how I'm feeling, but think about what can I do to make other people feel comfortable. And that really just totally shifts the focus, because you might be shy yourself and not realizing that you're actually like making others feel uncomfortable, because they're like, why is that girl so nervous around me? Is something wrong with
Right.
me?
Am I doing something wrong to make this person uncomfortable? What a great bit of advice. If you're feeling uncomfortable, see what you can do to make others feel comfortable. I think
Yeah.
that's really important, especially as we talk about pagan circles and witchcraft circles and community, um, because most of us on the daily basis are solitary. We're practicing in our homes on our own. We're reading our books, we're watching our podcasts, and we're doing our own little personal power rituals and whatever we're doing. But we don't come together on a weekly basis. Not usually. Some people do, and I think that's great. We might come together on a monthly basis. For me personally, I'm really only going to public rituals when it's a holiday or it's a big Sabbat. So then I will go, and it's a touchstone for me. Um, or I'm booked to teach at a convention or a festival or something, and then I'm like, oh, it's built into my work, so I can then be part of community in that way. But I think I apologize, I went on a tangent, but so many of us are individual practitioners. We're solitary practitioners. And oftentimes I find that the reason we're drawn to the pagan path or the witchcraft path is because we already feel like we need a place that we don't necessarily belong in these other spaces. We don't belong in a Christian space, or we don't belong in this space or that space. And that's one of the things that draws us to this path. So when we come together, we're already feeling a little like, well, do I belong here? So if you can make someone else feel like they belong, then you've you've built, you, like you said, you bringing community. Is that why you do all the community work that you do?
Yeah, honestly, yeah, I'm very passionate about making space for people. I feel honestly like I feel like even in the magic circles, I feel like I myself am a little bit of an outcast still, but I get my thrill from creating these spaces for other people can like connect with each other and come together, and that's kind of how I connect is by like making these spaces that then I can live vicariously through
But
through
you're also like the epicenter of what's going on. So, right. So
but
that you don't have to go to the thing, you are the thing, and people come to you.
anyone listening out there, like I urge you, like if you were somewhere that doesn't have a lot of pagan events, like consider starting something. A
Yes.
friend of mine moved from Denver to Cheyenne, Wyoming, and has been there a couple years and started a pagan meetup group there. I just spoke at via Zoom meeting just last week, but he has really grown that community when there was nothing. Now it's like a thriving pagan scene there. Like, and same thing happened in Atlanta when they did Atlanta Pagan Pride and got that going. Now it's all over the place. Like, if you build it, they will come, and if you create these spaces for other people to feel safe being who they are, you'll be rewarded. Your community will come to you. So, if you can't find it out there, make the space and let them come to you. Be that space maker.
And you're running quite a few of these community type things right now, aren't you?
Yeah, actually, I just moved from Denver to Oregon, so I'm passing that on to my friend Chrissy Robinson. She's been helping for a while, so she's going to be the new coordinator for Denver Pagan Pride. I still do Mystical Minds Convention as
Yeah.
my. I'm still helping with the Pagan Pride this current year till we get that all set up to get that smoothly transferred over. But it's such an important event. There's Pagan Prides all over, so I urge also if anybody's out there. Look into pagan pride events. Mystical minds, I do that in California. I wanted to create that event to bring together people from the paranormal community along with pagans, along with people that do investigate cryptids like bigfoots and things like that, and UFO, UFO sighters and researchers. I wanted to bring all the different freak communities together in a space so we could have a great weekend and learn from each other and kind of share our network. So that's the vision with that. We've had a few of those so far. They've been really fun.
And we all overlap, don't we? Like we all overlap a little, like this interest and that interest. And it'd be so cool. I mean, that sounds like a really cool convention. It's in California, you said?
Yeah, it's awesome because we get like the ghost investigators,
Yeah.
like the little technology, and then we have like, mediums that contact ghosts that way. So I love these conversations that occur at this event to, get both sides of things like that. I think it's really
Right.
fast.
And so now you said you're out in Oregon, which has a thriving pagan community scene.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
haven't been able to get out that much in it yet, but I'm looking forward to
It's
getting.
awesome out there. Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you. I love Oregon. I love Portland. I love the Pacific Northwest. I was out there a couple of years ago and I just completely fell in love with it. So good for you. I'm here in New England. I love it in New England as well. But if I was going to live anywhere else, it would be Portland, Oregon. Um, I think that's wonderful. And I do think that, you know, just on the heels of what you're saying about if there's not something in your environment and you want community, make it. The Pagan Pride organization, you know, it's international. People don't realize it's international. And the hardest part about those events is that they're all volunteer based, right? So somebody might take on the project to start a pagan pride day in their city or their town and not get the support that they need. And then that event fizzles. But that doesn't mean that you can't be the next coordinator. You can't be the person, right? Like when I started teaching classes, when I started doing, kitchen witchery, I started at Pagan Pride Days and I was going to every single one of them in the Northeast. So there's one in every state, sometimes two in every state. And a lot of them have stopped. A lot of them aren't doing them anymore because people haven't stepped up and said, I want to run this. So we encourage anyone out there who's listening, be the community, right? So important. So important. So, you are obviously a very celebrated author. very celebrated. You've written a ton of books. You're amazing. Is there something you wish you had known before you started your writing career that you wish you had known that you would tell others now?
I would say yes. I would say don't give away all your first copies of any of your books because you might not be able to get them again. Like I'm seriously like I've been tracking down for like over a year now trying to get like all my publications because I write for a lot of the Llewellyn almanacs too, like the Witch's Date book and Magical Almanac and things like that. And so many of them I've donated to like pagan pride events or given to people and things like that. And I don't have copies of all of my books. And to me, that's just kind of sad. So I would say any new authors starting out, save all your first copies. Make sure you have a first print run of all your stuff.
Save all of your copies. So your newest book is called the Cookbook of Shadows, and we are recording this podcast in February, at the right before February, at the end of January. Right now, we're recording, and it's available in February. Although this episode isn't going to air until May, so by the time this episode comes out, everyone will be able to buy this book. They should be buying this book, the Cookbook of Shadows. It's a really, really great little book. I say little, but it's small but really thick, and there's a lot of information in here. Um, is kitchen witchcraft something that you've always done, or is it something that you've recently started really taking to heart?
Yeah, I've always done, and I feel like I've always loved to cook, so it's kind of a natural form of magic that my magic is taken is kind of naturally. I think anybody that likes to cook and does magic, and if you use herbs in your magic, like it's just natural. Like you can't help but be a kitchen witch because that's how it's gonna be when you're cooking, because you're cooking with love and cooking from the heart.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that spice ins.
I tell people all the time, I'm like, everybody does this. Everybody already does kitchen witchcraft, whether you realize it or not. If you've ever been sick and made yourself a bowl of soup or cooked a bowl of soup, for, even if it was out of the can, a Campbell's can of soup that you made for your partner or your friend who was sick. And as you were stirring it, you were thinking, oh, this is going to make me feel better. This is just what that person needs to feel better. If you've done that, you've practiced kitchen witchery. Would you agree?
Absolutely, I agree with that.
Because it's
Definitely.
all about intention,
Yeah. And
right?
the foods are naturally powerful anyway, like all these vegetables and fruits and spices are just loaded with natural power and energy.
Right. It's like once you realize that and the light bulb is turned on, you can't unlearn that. You can't unsee the fact that these ingredients are just vibrating with energy,
Yeah,
right? So
definitely.
did you have a light bulb moment when you started realizing you were practicing kitchen witchery, or was it just gradual that you just sort of went, oh yeah, this is obviously magic?
Yeah, I think it's kind of more gradual or natural. Yeah, I can't really remember a moment of like deciding to do that. I don't know. I think I just kind of always done that.
Yeah. Yeah. And did you say before that your mom used to do a lot of like cooking and, that sort of thing? Is there one thing that you could remember like from your childhood that was really, as you look back on it now, you go, oh, that was kitchen magic?
Yeah, well, there's something I mentioned in my book that my mom would make monkey bread, but it started out as being like cinnamon toast, which may actually be what monkey bread is, but then she'd be like, I'll put in the monkey, and she'd like her eyes be all sparkly, and sometimes she'd let me put in the monkey and go like, "Ooh, ooh, ooh," and like I sprinkle the spice on there. But like to me, that was magic. But like then like everything became monkey bread because I love monkeys, so she could just call anything monkey bread, and I'd eat it if she said it was monkey bread. So it would be like bread with gravy on it. That's monkey bread. If bread pizzas made in the oven, so we don't have any actual pizza and monkey bread. Also, so I'd say monkey bread was her biggest form of kitchen magic. And that's the magic of like getting me to eat anything just by calling it monkey bread. But
That's
she
hilarious.
would do this like sparkle thing when she put the spices on it. So I guess I kind of picked that up from there. I just felt like it was, something you just do when you're cooking food.
Yeah, well, again, it's about creating, you know, the wonder and kind of like tapping into that. Like for me, it was um the ritual of the cooking of the thing. And for me, it started with like Christmas cookies and the
Yeah.
the the fact that the ritualism of we only use these particular cookie cutters and we only use these particular pans and this is how this is the process in which this is done and you can't deviate from that and it only happens this time of year and the ritualism behind it. And it wasn't until I was much older that I went, oh, that was my grandma doing kitchen rituals. That was, I mean, I grew up in an Italian family, and everything was very connective to earth, very connective to, my grandmother would go out into the garden and pick the herbs. And that's what you were eating in your, it was tomatoes from the garden and basil from the garden, salt and pepper. And that's what you were eating for dinner. So it was very much, um, um, very natural, very connected to spirit, very connected to earth, and also heritage. Is there any part of your kitchen witchery that connects to your ancestral heritage?
I would say yes, definitely. Well, there's lots of taco recipes for one in my book, and I grew up in southern Arizona, right on the Mexico border, so we always had lots of tacos. It was always a real special food in our family. And another thing is I have a recipe in there for, I think I called it abundant soup, but it's basically a recipe to be able to make soup out of anything because I have some very poor ancestors. On my dad's side, they actually grew up in the desert of Arizona. I'm actually related to the country western singer Marty Robbins, as my my paternal grandmother's brother. But so he got to be a real famous country western singer. But before that, they were dirt poor, and their dad was often, if he was working, he was doing like garbage collecting and stuff like that, and would literally like bring home scraps salvaged from the garbage. And the mom would like make soup out of the little potato scraps and stuff like that. So, my grandma told me all about this. And my dad was also real big on like not wasting any food at all. We'd always like save every scrap of vegetable. So that's one thing you can read in my book is how to make soup out of literally anything. If you got tiny little scraps of vegetables, it shows you like what spices you can put in there and how to like bulk it up to make soup out of literally anything. So that's my special heirloom recipe there.
I think that's really wonderful and really special because part of kitchen magic or food magic being magic in the first place is the alchemy of it, is taking something that seems like maybe nothing and being able to create sustenance, food, something to create comfort, but also nutrition and to keep your family alive. Like that's the reality. We're lucky enough to live in a world where, you know, uh, food is relatively abundant for most of us, not all of us. There's obviously a lot of still poverty in our country and people are going hungry for no reason, but there's no reason why we should have hunger in this country. I'm not going to get up on that soapbox, but but the alchemy of cooking food, taking something and turning it into something else. Do you feel that's something that um, is important to note when talking about kitchen witchcraft?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think that's a big part of the magic of it is, that's what fascinated me with the whole thing of cooking too. Is I thought it was, I don't know, still feel so awesome when I managed to make something tasty out of like nothing, basically. Like when I do make soup out of nothing, I'm like, yes, I'm a champion. Or like, look at this sauce I created out of nothing. Like it just feels so good to like to make something from scratch, like make some pasta and sauce from scratch, or some soup or bread or whatever you got. Like it feels good, and it's like it reminds us that we are creators, of our magic and of our world. And another thing I think is important to note, because you were talking about like food insecurity, and that is a big thing. And and some of us, we might have access to food, but we might not feel like eating for various reasons. Like sometimes our relationships with food aren't the healthiest.
Mm.
And that was actually another like inspiration for my book, because in the past I've struggled with like eating disordered behaviors of like depriving myself of food and things like that. So for my own personal journey, I found it very healing to like when I started getting better and like kind of wanted to reclaim my health. I was reminded of my love for cooking and kind of got more into cooking for myself. So I was cook for my family still, but I just wouldn't eat it myself. But so like learning to cook for myself again, and like it to me, like doing magic with your food, it can give you, if you do struggle with unhealthy relationships with food, it can give you a whole new perspective on just the whole cooking routine that can really like just shift the dynamic there, is where you're, it shifts the focus off of, oh, I need to eat this food. It shifts it to, oh, I want to do some magic because I want to feel cheerful or courageous today, or, I want to welcome abundance in my life, or whatever it is. It just gives you like another reason to eat. And then when you're doing that alchemy of making that food, it helps remind you that you do deserve nourishment and that you need to eat and feel nourished. And this probably seems really basic to anybody out here listening that doesn't have these like eating disorder behaviors, but I know like anybody that does, they're like, yes, I need to hear this.
Yes. Yes. And I don't know, first of all, thank you for sharing that with us. That's very personal and um, thank you, because that's not easy topic to talk about. But I don't think that it's that far away from most people's relationships with food, especially women, right? So I am a plus size woman and I love food, and I don't have any issues around not eating. I have issues around maybe eating too much, or not eating too much, and just that this is what my body looks like. And whether I'm eating nothing but salads or nothing at all, or ice cream sundaes, this is always what my body has looked like. Um, but because of the world we live in, because of the media machine, because of, even things that our close families and friends will say to us, our worth is tied to our physical appearance, and our physical appearance is tied to what we put in our mouths. And the relationship of food to our bodies can really be damaging in so many ways. The way we talk to ourselves about food, the way we talk to others about food, the way maybe young people overhear us talking to ourselves about food. These are the things that really mess us up as human beings. Again, specifically, a lot of women struggle with this sort of thing. Using kitchen witchcraft as a means of healing that relationship is humongous. Would you be willing to talk a little bit with us about how you used kitchen witchcraft to heal some of that within you?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, well, I've just started by like, I realized, reaching out wasn't really doing it for me, I guess. It can sometimes be hurtful, honestly, to reach out if you don't get the support there that you need. So I would say, step one is like take full responsibility for your own self. So what I did is would force myself to write down what I would eat. And then that just made me be able to objectively see like this is not nearly a human amount of food to be consuming. This is not, it showed me the abnormalness of it. So I'd say step one is I faced facts and wrote down what I ate so I'd know.
Sure.
And then I started planning out, well, what do I need to eat? What's a normal amount of food to eat? What's a person eat for breakfast? And I had to literally like, it's so weird. It's sometimes strange applying this stuff to yourself. So, I cook for my kids and stuff. But like for me, I had like literally like Google search, like, what does an average person eat for breakfast? How many calories do I need to personally consume? So I just say, decide like, what do you like to eat? Find something healthy that you like, whether it's overeating or undereating. Like, find that delicious thing that you are able to eat that you like and feel good about putting that in your body. For me, it was veggie burgers with avocado, and I'm still hooked on
Mm.
avocados. I'll eat avocado like every single day.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Just find like, what do you feel good about eating? And then, sit there and eat it. Like what helped me to be more mindful too, not only in my food preparation, I would think about like my body is a machine. It's a physical machine. It needs fuel to survive. My body needs fuel to survive. And that's how I'd look at it. But then I'd also bring that magic into that and put some love into that food, because I was trying to, show myself self-love when I eat and show appreciation
Yes.
for the food. And I put that love for myself into the food and then put it back in my body when I eat. Another thing I do to just continue the mindfulness that just helps me personally is I don't like to do anything else when I'm eating. I don't like to be on my phone or reading or watching a show. Like sometimes I will, but like I really try to not. And to me, it helps me to just sit and eat. When I'm eating, I'm not doing anything else. I'm sitting there, I'm consuming that food. So I'm mindful of, I'm putting this food in my body, because for me, it's important for me to remember I'm nourishing myself. I deserve to be nourished. So it's like, it's an important ritual to me that kind of continues the magic throughout the eating process, to just like be mindful that I'm feeding myself and that that's a good thing.
This is
So
so important. This is so important. The mindfulness portion of it is so important because we do, again, that's part of that weird relationship that we have as a culture with food, right? If you go anywhere in Europe, they literally are, just going to sit down and eat a meal. They're not rushing through it. You're not going to find Europeans shoving a power bar down their throat in rush hour traffic trying to get to work. That's not how it goes, right? But that's how we function. And it's so unhealthy, not just for our bodies, but for our spirits. The mindfulness helps you to create connectivity between your food source, Mother Earth, and your body, which houses your spiritual self, right? These are physical bodies, like you put it, that are machines that house our spiritual beings, right? So to connect our spiritual beings to Mother Earth and the cycles of Earth, we need to understand that we are taking into our physical bodies what she is providing in the form of fruits, vegetables, even animal products. If you eat animal products, dairy, honey, all of these things help us to connect to that, right?
well said. Yeah.
I mean, this is so important, and it's a healing prospect on not just, oh, my personal relationship with food is I'm a fat girl and I shouldn't eat the chocolate cake, but but also it allows us to connect deeper. And I think that's a part of kitchen witchcraft. We often say, I often say, food is love. It's the most important ingredient, right? That intentionality, but it's also how we heal those sort of like mother wounds with the earth. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. Like, yeah, it does. Like, it totally connects us to the earth, and I think it makes us grateful too. Like another value of kitchen witchery to me is in that alchemy of making stuff tasty even when it's not. Like, I mean, face facts, we don't always have the best food. Like maybe you just didn't have time to go to the store, or maybe you can't afford to go to the store, or maybe you went to the food bank and they just gave you like 80 loaves of moldy bread and nothing else. Like kitchen
Yeah.
magic help too, to like make something tasty and to help us feel that connection, like you're saying. Like it reconnects us with that, because it's like the cycle of life. Eating is the cycle of life. Like we're taking this energy into our bodies, and then one day we're going to be energy for something else. And just thinking of, like, we feel all human walking around, but there are so many microbes that live on and in us. It's insane. Like we're literally more microbe than man. It's crazy. So it's
What
like
a great point.
yourself, you're keeping whole, ecosystems alive in your eyebrows or whatnot. So, it's important to that.
That is such a great point. And like on that topic of, healing and not being able to, maybe you only got, moldy bread from the food bank or for me again, can only speak from my own experiences, but I have celiac disease. So there's a lot I can't eat. And oftentimes I'm afraid of food because
Mm,
it's going to hurt or I'm
yeah.
going to get sick or, the social aspects of food gathering. It's one of my favorite things in the world to do is to cook for a bunch of people or to go out to dinner with a bunch of people. connectivity over a meal, right? Being able to sit down with somebody and share, a meal and really have a good conversation. Like that's my favorite thing in the world. And yet here I am. It's my whole food is my whole life. Kitchen witchcraft is my whole life. And oftentimes I'm afraid to eat because I'm not sure if it will be bad for me or hurt me or, now so many new things now, like I can't have this and I can't have that. And people think maybe I'm full of shit. Oh yeah, sure. She can't eat this and she can't eat that. Oh, it's just a fad diet. And I'm like, no, these foods will actually tear up my intestines. I can't eat them. So practices of kitchen witchery and practices of food rituals, mindfulness, appreciation, connectivity allow me to find a deeper understanding and kind of like a vibrational compatibility with the food that I'm creating. Do you have any experience or feedback on that type of thing? People dealing with food allergies in kitchen witchcraft.
So now it can be tough. Like I commend you for, for dealing with that. I know that can be anxiety inducing, especially like going out to eat, because you can't ever be certain, like, what's going on in somebody's kitchen or even at a friend's house, especially if
Mhm.
it's like it, you might not want to offend a friend, and you can't be like, "Well, are you sure it was isolated when you
Yeah.
prepared it? Are you
Yeah.
sure yours were clean? Did you use different utensils?" Stuff like that can be so tricky. Lots of us have food allergies or special diet restrictions, but yeah, I would say all the more reason, if you're dealing with stuff like that, all the more reason to do like you have done, Don, and like embrace your cooking self and like make the food yourself, so it's safe, and it's something that you can enjoy, and and feel free to adapt. Like I made my recipes very adaptable, so if somebody does have celiac or they don't eat meat or they do eat meat, then they're all real customizable like that. And embrace what works for you and your own diet, and to instead of focus on like what you can't have, think about like what you can have, and what different alternate flours are best to.
Yeah, and that I think that's really important again, like when it comes to kitchen witchcraft and the ideas of doing magic around food because I think there's people that and oftentimes when we talk about kitchen witchcraft there's two kind of um schools of thought, right? There's my school of thought is I am a culinary kitchen witch. The work I do in the kitchen is food related, it's edible, it's about putting, intentionality into food. It's all of those things. But there are other people that say, well, if you do magic in the kitchen, if you make soaps, if you make lip balm out of household things, you're also doing kitchen witchcraft, which I agree with. That those sort of kind of like folkloric and in-home hearth kind of practices 100%. But that's not what I do. And because I'm not crafty unless it's food. I don't know how to make anything. But that's the truth. But I think these practices allow us to sort of have a little bit more freedom, right? Switching gears a little bit, I use kitchen witchcraft to be able to share my path and my work with people that aren't necessarily pagans or witches, because everybody eats, right? So I find that it's a way that I can connect with other human beings through food in my magical way. How do you feel about that?
That's a good point. That's great because, yeah, like food does bring us together. It's something that we all need. So I think that's a great, awesome way to be able to share that with others and to be able to share a little bit of your heart and love with people through your food. That's awesome.
Do you do the same sort of thing, like cook a big dish and bring it to somebody? So like, do you cook something for a ritual celebration or something to share with friends that aren't pagan? Have you had an experience like that?
And yeah, but I've never told them that it was magical though. So
Well, it
maybe
depends on the friends. Like, I don't always tell people that it's magical. You know,
Only
like I wouldn't tell that to my mother. I wouldn't show up with something I made magically and then be like, "Hey, very Catholic lady, I made this for you under the full moon." I wouldn't tell her that. She'd be a little offended. You know. Anyway, let's take a quick break. We've been chatting for so long. We're almost out of time, but we do have to get our sponsors in. So let's take a quick break and then we'll come back and we'll talk more about your book and you know, where to find you and all that stuff. We'll be right back. We're back with Melanie Marquis and we're talking all about kitchen witchcraft today, which I'm loving so much. I don't always get to like geek out about kitchen witchcraft on this show. So thanks, Melanie. So Cookbook of Shadows. Why did you decide to write this book now?
Well, I wanted to have a handy reference for people to use for their kitchen magic. Like I found a lot of recipe books are just kind of like too complicated in my opinion, or too specific and exacting. Like personally, I'll get annoyed if a recipe is asking for like a whole lot of new ingredients like I don't have. So I have to like go buy a whole bunch of stuff and like it might not even be good. And it's just like too overly complicated. Like I wanted to do something that would provide people a foundation so that they can be more creative in the kitchen. I wanted people to boost their confidence in cooking and in witchcraft through my book. So I wanted to write it where it would be like good for absolute beginners, but also useful for somebody like you that's been practicing kitchen witchcraft, but to still have that handy reference, because
Yeah,
sometimes you just want to look up like, oh yeah, what's cinnamon good for, or have like I haven't arranged like there's a whole section of goals where you can look up, by magical goals like courage, abundance, love,
right.
happiness, what you're going for effect. And you can see here's some ingredients for that, here's some recipes for that. But there's also just like a a section of just like ingredients where it has over 100 ingredients just listed along with their magical effects and some different ideas of how to cook with those. And then I've got a section on and like by recipes and ingredients by the elemental correspondences
Mhm.
and correspondences, and then again for seasons. So basically you can use it in like lots of different ways, and all the recipes are very like simple but powerful. So I wanted everything to be easy to adapt and to invite customization. So the witch at home can make the food what they like to their own liking. Experienced cooks will find that they can easily adapt the base recipes, whereas like new cooks will find that they'll start making more stuff from scratch maybe and realize that
Yes.
great sauces.
Yes. Yes. And isn't that kind of like the whole point is like get back in the kitchen. I think during COVID, there was such a surgence of people, you're stuck at home and people all of a sudden were like, oh, let's make sourdough. Oh, let's make homemade soups. I'm like, kitchen witches have been doing this, baby. Like this is what we do. That's why we're happier, we're healthier. Like, yeah, it's all about, nurturing of the body, mind, and soul within the home. One of the things I love about your book is that there are little sections within it that say notes. So you can really use it as a workbook, which for me, that's really great because I tend to like open up my cookbooks and write stuff next to them and change the recipes on the fly for gluten-free and, do that. So I think that's really, really handy for sure. And I love all the magical correspondences. Here's a question I get asked a lot. What do you do when you have four ingredients that have the same magical properties? How do you decide which one to use for what goal you want to use?
I would go with what everyone is going to be tastiest in the recipe, but they all taste good together. I would just kind of I'd blend those energies together and let them kind of support each other in the recipe. So I would go for more is more in that one.
Is
I'd
is
concentrate.
there
That is how I do it. Is I think about, I try to connect with that energy and that ingredient that I want to draw out, and I feel that vibration, and then I just think about that like magnifying. I think about that vibration getting stronger, like kind of overriding the other vibrations in it, so that that's kind of like programmed to be like the highlight.
right? Because recipes are made with more than one ingredient, right? And so you might have, a love ingredient, a money ingredient, a protection ingredient, and, I don't know, blanking on, and a healing ingredient, right? But maybe you're cooking this meal with the intention of getting a raise, right? So
Mhm.
which one of those energies do you want to tap into is the one that you would visualize, amplify the vibration. You would do like for me, I'll do like a visualization technique, or I'll do a quick meditation around it. Is that what you do as well? And is that what you advise for people to do?
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I just because not everything, nothing is just one thing. We all have these different aspects and vibrations. So you're kind of like, that's where the artistry comes in and where the witchcraft comes in, because it's up to you to decide what energies are you bringing to the forefront there, because it has all these energies. It's like you have like a whole palette of paints, but it's up to you to decide what picture are you going to paint with those colors. So yeah, I just focus in on like the vibration that I want, and then I just think about that growing stronger and magnifying. You can kind of get that to take over the whole
Mhm.
ingredient or whatever it is.
Melanie Marquis, you are just delightful. The book is Cookbook of Shadows through Llewellyn. It is available now because at the time of this recording, it's just about to come out, but we're airing this in May. So this book is available now as you're listening to this. So where can people buy it, and how do they follow you online, and how do they get in touch with you if they want to?
Well, you can get this all over the place. You can get it on Amazon.com. You can get it at Llewellyn.com. You can get them directly from me on my website, Melanie Marquis, Marquis.com. I sell signed copies directly from me, or if you ask for it at your local bookstore, they should have it or be able to order it. Yeah, so I can be found online, MelanieMarquis.com, on Facebook, Melanie Marquis author. I also have Stuffed Animal Magic Shop channel, Magic with a K on TikTok and
That's
YouTube.
adorable.
I usually am better about. I'll do tarot readings with for Blango, my teddy bear, and sometimes they'll have like little magic shop lessons and things that we'll
It's the
do.
cutest thing I've ever seen. I did go check it out before we got on this call, and I was like, oh, this is freaking cute as hell. All right, and we'll put all of your links and all of that on the show notes so people will be able to click and find you and buy the book. Thank you so much for coming on today and talking kitchen witchcraft with me. This is delightful. Thank you so much. So just until next time, everyone, don't forget to like and subscribe. Oh, I forgot to ask you my question. So I ask everybody who comes on this show a question, but I feel like it's a weird question to ask you because you're also a kitchen witch. But I'm going to ask you anyway. This is
All
my
right.
last question, I promise. If you could have me cook a meal for you, what would it be and why?
Hmm.
Because
I
you're a
feel
good cook, so you're also a kitchen witch, so you don't need me to cook you a magical meal.
like tacos, and like I'm seeing some kind of like little cake in a cup. I don't know what it is. It almost looks like a carrot cake. It's
Ooh,
something like a little souffle cup.
a
This is
carrot cake, cupcake.
tacos and some kind of little cake in a cup.
You know what's funny is I'm making poblano chicken chili for dinner tonight with cornbread
Oh,
because it's in bulk. So that's my in bulk meal. I always do spicy. And it's funny that you said tacos because, like you said before, tacos really connect you to your childhood, and I effing love tacos. I could eat tacos every day of the week because they're gluten free most times. So I'm
yeah.
good for tacos. I don't know. I could definitely make you carrot cake cupcakes for sure. For sure. Um, well, again, thank you so much for being here, Melanie. It was great to meet you. It was great to talk kitchen witchcraft with you. Everybody, check out Cookbook of Shadows. Check it out. And remember to click and support this podcast. Remember to go check out Melanie online. And until next time, everyone, I wish you so many blessings and so much gratitude. Thanks, guys.